We love introducing you to inspiring people, and sometimes that can be entrepreneurs. We've had many an expert in the studio now. It's a very special family indeed. Nick Watson and his daughter Tia, record breaker, spoiler alert. They are part of Team AngelWolf. They're on a mission to encourage community inclusion through sports, community activities, and yes, throwing a Guinness World Record into the mix. Tia, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I've never met a 16-year-old Guinness World Record breaker before, so congratulations, I guess, are first in order.
Thank you so much.
We're going to hear a little bit more about what it took to have the certificate that's in the studio, but I'd love to start with you, Nick, if you don't mind. For anyone that is not familiar with the story of your family, would you mind giving us some background and tell us what you've been up to over the last few years?
Look, I think it started in when Rio came into our lives, now 20. Unfortunately, at 4, when he was about 4, he had his first seizure, and we realised life was going to be very different from then on. His diagnosis means that he's got a very rare chromosome disorder, so it's called 1q44 deletion, so it's a part of the chromosome that's deleted. And it leads to seizures, obviously non-verbal and other challenges that he has in his life. And we just kind of came to realise, being in Dubai now for 25 years, that how could we give back? How could we start including people with determination? And we started to race with Rio. So in 2014, we did our first race together. We're now 500 races in.
Wow.
We've covered, I think, with Mum, Tia, me, with Rio, have covered about 14,000 kilometres of swimming, cycling and running. So I swim and Tia swims with pulling Rio in a kayak. We've got a special bike. Rio sits on the front and we've got a chair. We run together. So I think we've covered the equivalent distance from Dubai. I think we're somewhere in New Zealand at the moment. And the whole purpose was to make sure that everyone's included, everyone's welcome, and we've done it through sport. Mm-hmm. And so we set up a non-profit, and the goal was to make a difference and include Rio.
Well, that's absolutely the case. Tell us a little bit about some of your biggest memories of these races, Tia. I mean, mentioning there about swimming with a kayak. Where have you been in the world, and what have been the most meaningful right here in the UAE for you?
Racing with Rio. My biggest memories of the Rio. Well, one of my first races with the Rio was a triathlon, and I don't remember what year it was, but I remember we were down at the waters and we're getting ready for the swim, getting our goggles ready, caps, and then all of a sudden we see Sheikh Hamdan, the Crown Prince of Dubai, walking over to us, and then he ends up coming over to us, and we have a good chat for 10 minutes before my race, and it was a very good confidence boost for me.
Ooh, I mean, if you're going to get a pep talk.
Yeah,
my
literally.
Goodness.
And then we started the swim, and then I came out, and then I realized he was still there with us, and he was actually filming it. So I continued the race, taking Rio out the kayak, went for the bike and then the run. And on the run, I turn around and he's still there, and he's actually running with us, and he's filming it all. And then we crossed the finish line. There's a great iconic picture of us. And then I just crossed the finish line, and I realized I've just raced and with Sheikh Hamdan. He literally just videoed it all and ran with me. And then about the next day, we went on Instagram, and he made a video. So all those clips he had done before, he made it into one video, posted it, and it got 1.9 million views.
Wow.
Probably 1 million of those is probably Dad. Not gonna lie.
Click,
but yeah.
click.
Watch again. What kind of support does it, I mean, obviously from royal family all the way to supporters that have been with you from day one, what does that mean to you as a family to have that kind of support behind you, Nick?
Oh, I think just amazing. We've been so fortunate to be here in Dubai for so long, and obviously inclusion's at the forefront for us. So to be able to do events and obviously have His Highness always come over and say hello. And the loveliest thing, and when we talk about inclusion and where the kind of journey's taken us, His Highness will always come over and say hello to Rio before me. And for me, that means the world. That's the message. That's what we're trying to do, to make sure that Rio isn't just this person with disabilities and he's sat by the side. He's a part of our family, and it makes us feel at home living here. And if role models and leadership comes at that level, then we are so blessed to be here in Dubai and the UAE.
I think what your family is a beautiful example of is we can talk about inclusion in quite kind of wishy-washy, abstract ways. And I think sometimes that word inclusion loses meaning. And does that make sense? And that's not to say we shouldn't be talking about it. It's that we need to think about the real life applications for that word and what can be done about it. And what you guys do so well is that humanity side, to be thinking about brothers and sisters and mums and dads. And, you know, here we are out in the world doing our thing, setting an amazing example. And I have to say, look like having an awful lot of fun. So let's talk world records. Tell us about what certificate you brought into the studio today. What have you been officially awarded?
So back in March, Rio and I did a Guinness World Record as a triathlon. We did an Olympic triathlon, and the record is the fastest time to do an Olympic triathlon whilst carrying a person.
Whoa. Okay. For those of us who don't frequently do triathlons, what distances are we talking about?
Okay, so the swim is 1,500 meters, and then the bike is 40k, and then the run is 10k.
And how were you doing this with? And I'm going to try and be delicate about this. You are strong, but you're not a big person.
No,
Tia.
no.
Okay, so can we talk about some logistics around this? What were you having to do at each stage to make sure that Rio was with you at every step?
Like how I bring him. Okay, so the swim, he's in like a kayak, and then there's like a little strap connected to my ankles, and then I pull him from there. And the bike, we've got this cool like extended bike that has a seat right at the front, and Rio will sit there. And then we've got our own running chairs that Rio will sit at the front, and I push him along.
Oh my God. I mean, the thought of doing those kind of distances anyway is mind-blowing to me. I can't run a bath, never mind a triathlon. So tell us then about how it went on the day and some of the training that led you up to that point.
The training, well, I always was training with my dad. It got very strict all of a sudden because we didn't have much notice. We had like maybe 2 months notice before the actual race day itself. We were trying to train every day, twice a day even. Yeah.
Make it sound I was like, I was ready. I was
But
good.
also
I was
it's a
good to
very
go.
big mental game. It was all mental. Like the swim, I was very confident about. I had actually a really good swim, and even on race day and on the bike, because it was on Deer Islands, and if you've ever been, there's like no protection like wind wise, and if you cycle with wind, you know it's hard, and especially pushing Rio as well just makes it even more harder.
Can I just jump in there? The bike, by the way, weighs, and Rio is 85 kilos. Yeah. So that's what she's pushing. So the cyclists listening at the moment, their lovely carbon fiber bikes weigh about 7, 8. So it just puts it in perspective. When I ride with Rio, it's hard. It's really hard. So I could see on the day with the wind how hard she was pushing because we had an allocated time for her to finish to get the record.
Yeah, so for us to get the record, we had to do in under 3 hours and 45 minutes. And the bike, I don't know how many loops, but it was like 7 loops. And then the wind was coming from every direction. And it was just really hot as well. And it wasn't easy at all.
Nick, sorry, go on.
It's all right. And then on the run, just before I started the run, I started getting a bit nervous because I had a timer with me to see how much time I had left. And then I was kind of doubting myself, like, what if I don't get it and stuff? But I pushed my way through and we got it.
Certainly did. We've got Tia and Nick with us today, part of Team AngelWolf. What was it like watching your kids out there thinking about what was at stake?
Do you know what? To do a Guinness World Record, there's an enormous amount of logistics that need to be obviously sent along when you've done the actual attempt. And for me, I have to be honest with you, typical dad, OCD, my main thing was to make sure Tia had all those criteria. So we had she had 3 GPSs on, you know what I mean? She had 2 watches on. There was another one in her pocket because we had to obviously follow her time, make sure she done. Because obviously if we didn't have these kind of elements, she wouldn't have got the record. Mm-hmm. So I'll be honest with you, without taking films and everything else, I wasn't really in the moment. And it's only afterwards that you kind of go, oh, wow, what she achieved. And she crossed the line and she did it under the time. But then you kind of go for the next 3 weeks preparing to send off everything to Guinness World Record.
It's rigorous.
It's down to a T. And rightly so. And it was brilliant. But I have to admit, it is very stressful. And then it took 12 weeks for that process to go through, even knowing would we get the record? So we didn't know, and we didn't. So it was a kind of a whole process.
How do you find out then that you've got a Guinness World Record? Is it a phone call? Is it an email? Nick,
it's an email. It's an email that finally comes back, and I have to admit, the office here is absolutely fantastic. So they were following us and obviously doing everything we had any issues with, making sure that obviously that we got the record. But yeah, I'll be honest with you, it was 12 weeks. We knew that she got it, but you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Yeah.
And loads of things kept coming back. Can you send this? Can you send this? And I got stressed again at 12 weeks in, and I'm like, oh no, what have we done wrong? And then finally you get the lovely email.
I do urge you to go over to the Instagram. It's as easy as it gets. Team AngelWolf. There's two posts there that there's a video and then there's much needed celebrations as well, kind of highlighting this. Running out of time, but I guess I wanted to ask you, Nick, if you don't mind. Given the last couple of decades, and I guess looking at the world through a different lens because of everything that Rio's brought to your life and everything you've been contributing to the UA community and beyond, what would you love to see in the next 20 years when it comes to inclusion?
Look, I think for us, everything has to start at home. When we talk about inclusion, and I think when you used the word a little bit earlier about what should inclusion be, for us it's making sure that everyone is welcome. And for me, that needs to start at home. Welcoming your neighbour, obviously learning a little bit about terminology, if there's a requirement to learn a little bit of sign language. So as parents, people feel comfortable in their environment. So by the time they step out the door and they go to the shopping mall, they're a little bit more at ease rather than always been a little bit on edge. And then that will run through the rest of your life. So obviously, those parents out there, trying to get their child first time into a centre of persons with disabilities, into a school and schooling, etc. It's enormously stressful. And I think you talked a little bit earlier about obviously someone with autism going into the workplace. So there's lots of stresses ahead. So I think for us, we just want to make sure that everyone starts to include everyone. It doesn't matter where you're from, who you are, if you have a disability or you don't have a disability. I think we live in a world that, we learned in COVID how important family is. And if we can start at the fundamentals and include everyone from that element, then everything will naturally happen. It will happen in the workplace, it will happen at school, it will happen in the playground. And I think it's a big step, but it's starting to happen, and that's why we live here.
It is, and I think it's really important to have, and I don't use this term lightly, to role models such as yourself. I think teens get a really bad rap for many reasons. But my goodness, what an incredible young woman you are.
Thank you.
What are your hopes for the future, personal, professional? I can tell by the look in your eyes. You're one to watch. What are you planning now? Just 16 years old. What's next?
Like challenges or like job-wise?
Whatever you want. The world's your oyster.
Well, my future goals, as in like races, is there's a 70.3 Ironman in Dubai, and you have to be 18 to do that. So basically that's double the Olympic distance. I really want to do that with Rio when I'm 18. And I also want to do 6 international world marathons.
If anyone can, it's you. Team AngelWolf, thank you so much for joining us today.
You.
Again,
Thank
huge congratulations. Everyone pop over to that Instagram, check out the video. It is something to behold indeed. It's Afternoons with me, Helen Farmer. It is 10 to 4, heading over now for the latest on your...